Today, we're diving straight into one of the absolute most fascinating networks in all of human history. Now, when you hear the words Silk Road, you probably picture this single, dusty, highly romanticized dirt trail just winding through the desert, right? Well, we need to completely toss that picture out the window. The Silk Road wasn't just a single path. It was this massive, incredibly complex, and frankly, terrifyingly perilous network. Think of it more like the internet of antiquity. It was a sprawling web that linked China with the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, and it literally transformed the global economy for over 1,000 years.
So, to really understand this, we have to start by asking a super simple question. Why in the world would anyone abandon safety and risk absolutely everything just to move a bolt of fabric? I mean, it sounds completely crazy to us today. But back in antiquity, silk wasn't just fabric. It was a closely guarded, exclusive secret of China. It was this incredibly rare, highly prized luxury that Western empires, especially the Romans, literally could not get enough of. In Rome, wearing silk was the ultimate flex. It signaled power, wealth, and extreme status. The demand was so feverish that it was actually draining silver out of the Roman economy. And not insane demand is what pushed ordinary people to embark on these terrifying journeys.
And when I say terrifying, I mean it. The traders moving these goods definitely weren't cruising down some paved, secure interstate. The physical stakes were massive, and the geography was an absolute nightmare. They were navigating through a shifting, merciless landscape, where just one tiny mistake, or honestly just a stroke of bad luck, meant certain death. The sheer willpower it took to even start this journey is almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around today.
Let's break down those dangers, because they were stark and relentless. First, you had the Taklamakan Desert. This was a scorching, deadly wasteland that caravans had to very, very carefully skirt around. But hey, if you survived the blazing heat, congratulations! You then had to navigate the freezing, towering, completely oxygen-deprived passes of the Pamir Mountains. And, if the extreme weather and the brutal geography didn't get you, the humans probably would. These routes were absolutely swarming with armed bandits who were just waiting out there to ambush weary travelers and steal their insanely valuable cargo.
So, how did anyone actually survive this? Well, merchants relied heavily on a really brilliant ancient innovation called the caravanserai. Basically, think of it as an ancient mashup of a fortified hotel, a parking garage for your camels, and a bustling community center. They were strategically built about a day's journey apart from each other. Inside, you had this highly protected courtyard where merchants could safely lock up their goods overnight. You'd get sleeping quarters, vital water from the wells, and maybe most importantly, a place to swap critical intel about road conditions and market prices with other travelers. Without the caravanserais, making it across the Silk Road would have been pretty much impossible.
What really gets me is that this entire massive global economy was driven by what has to be one of the most bizarre discoveries ever. Seriously, someone somewhere figured out that if you take the cocoons of the Bombyx mori moth and boil them, you can extract a luxurious, continuous thread. A single caterpillar cocoon can give you a thread over 3,000 feet long. That is just wild. This simple, completely strange discovery literally built empires.
Now, all these massive risks were fueled by an equally massive economic engine. We usually think of the Silk Road as this one-way street, just funneling silk straight out of China to everyone else. But actually, scratch that. It was a highly dynamic, booming two-way exchange, and it benefited pretty much everyone involved. To put it in perspective, let's look at the flow of goods. Going west out of China, you have these very delicate, highly refined luxuries. We're talking porcelain, silk, and revolutionary inventions like paper and gunpowder. But going east, straight into China, the goods were totally different. They were rugged, highly practical, and incredibly prized. Chinese armies desperately needed powerful Central Asian horses. They were also importing thick furs, precious gems like lapis lazuli, and exquisite Middle Eastern glassware, which was totally unknown in early China. Both sides had exactly what the other side wanted, and that is what fueled this massive economic boom. But here is the absolutely crucial thing to remember about all of this: the human endurance factor. Almost no single merchant was loading up a camel in Beijing and walking all the way to Rome. No way. Instead, the Silk Road functioned just like a massive, grueling relay race. A merchant would travel for maybe a few weeks, survive their specific, treacherous leg of the journey, sell their goods for a nice profit in some vibrant oasis city, and then just head home. They survived their segment, passed the baton, and that was it. Goods would change hands dozens and dozens of times, getting more and more expensive with every single stop.
But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Beyond just making a profit and moving physical stuff around, this huge relay race had a profound, completely unintended consequence: the cross-pollination of human thought. The Silk Road wasn't just a physical highway, it became an ancient superhighway for culture, language, art, and philosophy. I mean, when you throw merchants from India, Persia, China, and the Mediterranean together in the courtyard of a caravanserai for the night, ideas are absolutely going to spread like wildfire.
You can really see how this played out across the board. On the religious front, belief systems like Buddhism, which started in India, made their way east and completely transformed the spiritual culture of China and Japan. Later on, Islam expanded rapidly along these exact same routes thanks to Muslim merchants. And technologically, the exchange was literally world-changing. Papermaking, the magnetic compass, and gunpowder traveled from east to west. Those three things fundamentally revolutionized global communication, made the age of exploration possible, and completely, permanently altered human warfare.
Eventually, though, this chaotic, dangerous, pieced-together network was conquered and unified by one massive superpower: the Mongol Empire. Founded by Genghis Khan, the Mongols swept in and took over almost the entire length of the Silk Road. And by doing that, they kicked off an era known as the Pax Mongolica, or the Mongol Peace. Imagine this: 4,000 miles of protected trade routes. That is a staggering distance. Under the Mongol Peace, these routes were heavily policed, taxes were actually standardized, and they even set up a whole system of stations with fresh horses. For the very first time in history, goods, ideas, and even famous European explorers like Marco Polo could move faster and safer than ever before. The relay race finally had a dedicated, secure track. But as is so often the case in history, this extreme hyperconnectivity ultimately set the stage for the Silk Road's dramatic downfall. The exact same systems that made the world smaller and generated all this unbelievable wealth also created massive, hidden vulnerabilities. And those vulnerabilities would change the course of human history in some truly devastating ways. The collapse basically happened in a devastating domino effect. Domino 1 in the 1300s, that vast Mongol Empire fractured into smaller warring states. So boom, that unified protection was gone. Domino 2, right in the mid-1300s, a devastating plague used the incredible efficiency of those trade routes to spread across the globe. And the final domino, by the 1400s and 1500s, European explorers started pioneering advanced maritime sea routes. At the end of the day, packing tons of goods onto a ship was simply cheaper, much faster, and way safer than dragging them across a scorching desert on a camel. The overland routes just slowly faded into obscurity. We really do have to pause on the darkest cost of all this connectivity, though: the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. The very same roads that carried those beautiful silks and life-saving technologies were also carrying plague-infected fleas. They hit on the rats that were stowed away inside merchant caravans and grain shipments. It spread at lightning speed from Central Asia straight into Europe and China, claiming anywhere between 75 and 200 million lives. It's a truly sobering reminder of the ultimate double-edged sword of global connection. Which brings us to today. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Do our modern global networks carry the exact same hidden risks and rewards as the ancient Silk Road? Today, our Silk Road is made of fiber optic cables, the internet, and massive global shipping lanes. We have unprecedented instant access to goods and ideas, much like they did during the Mongol Peace. But as this history so elegantly teaches us, hyperconnectivity always comes with extraordinary vulnerabilities. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the world around you.